if you want to be wealthy without effort or with minimal effort, become a parliamentarian in Kenya. Then become an MCA in Kenya, acquire political office. Suddenly, within months, you can build a mansion which even if you worked for 100 years, you'd never afford. And the young people therefore look at this and say, well, this is the route. The tragedy of our country, which makes me sad, is that there is now a crop of individuals in Kenya across the political divide, in government and in opposition, who believe that they are above the law. They believe that they operate outside of the law. They believe that they cannot be arrested, because if you arrest them, their ethnic group will rise in their defense. When a country finds ourselves in such a situation, and I'm in the business of writing. This is one of my civic duties. I wrote to the National Cohesion Chairman, my good friend Bishop Omai, immediately upon his appointment, and I told him and gave him names of people who in mother tongue are using vitriolic language. He has responded to me, to his credit. I wrote to the IEBC, telling them that the law is very clear on when the elections will be held on Tuesday, the 10th day of August, the year 2027. The law does not allow anybody to engage in any campaign. This is the time to actually warn Kenya. We must not imagine for one moment that this country is immune. We have seen how countries just break down. This same kind of language was being spoken in Sudan. Now go and look at Sudan. It is non-functional. Let them go to Eastern Congo. Let them think about what happened in Somalia. Let them know what happened in Central African Republic. Today, we wake up and we are told that young people were abducted by who? And we are not told who abducted them. We are told that carjackings are happening by who? We are told that the country is dealing with the issue, but we don't see the evidence. We ought to be alarmed. Every Kenyan of goodwill must not sit pretty and believe that things are right. I listen to people who are politicians, who are cabinet ministers, saying that they don't like a particular ethnic group. How can you, in good conscience, say that you don't like a particular ethnic group because of an individual, a miscreant in that particular ethnic group? Is this not what they did in Rwanda in 1994 against the Tutsi, and it led to the genocide? The message is, this country ought to retreat. This is a good country, but no more than 5,000 individuals who now think that they are demigods are leading us in the wrong direction. The ballot no longer carries the magic of giving us the men and women that we deserve. But we can still sanitize the budget, the ballot. We can sanitize the ballot through education. This is a country that has no shortage of institutions and laws. We have the ombudsman, whose duty is to ensure that public servants and public institutions conduct themselves in the best interest of the people. We have the national cohesion, which is designed to ensure that we, in our diversity, live in harmony. We have the Kenya Human Rights Commission. We have the laws, but yet what you say is right. We changed the name of the police force, which was a colonial relic, into a police service, so that the police could be a service. But I've seen and heard with my own eyes a senior politician at a public rally saying, have been allotted people to take to the police force. In other words, we now have a country where if you are a public official, you are a senator, you are a member of parliament, then you are given slots to bring in your own people into the force. When merit dies, it manifests itself in several ways. And this is what, unfortunately, we are beginning to see in the Republic of Kenya. On the 25th of June, I deliberately decided to drive around town. And it was barricaded. And I, on a number of occasions, negotiated with the police and said, you are stopping people. What you ought to have done, if I were there without being an expert, was to deploy the General Service Unit into the city of Nairobi and ensure that we all go to work, or allow us to go to work, and any errant individual would then be dealt with firmly and in accordance with the law. On that day, I can guarantee you the business communities lost nothing less than 3 billion Kenya shillings. International transactions that ought to have taken place through our banking system did not take place, and many other people. And yet we are proceeding as if all is normal. I can't agree with you more that the mere fact that there is calm does not mean that there is a tornado which is breeding. And the discontent of people, Kenyans are very angry. And you see it when you are driving. Kenyans are angry. You see it when you hoot at a person who is crossing the road. They are angry. This anger is a product of certain kind of discontentment. And we've got to deal with it. And unfortunately, the political class are only interested in what I call a theater of the absurd. That is why they hold these political rallies. I asked one of them, who is my friend, okay, you've held a political rally during the week and is attended by 10,000. Does it not worry you that these people are not working? You say the rally is successful. It's a weekday. Are they not working? And then you give them 200 shillings each. You should be worried. But they are not worried because their egos are so large. They are not worried because their interest is to acquire political office. And why is political office so important in Kenya? I've said it and I'm repeating it. If you want to be wealthy without effort or with minimal effort, become a parliamentarian in Kenya. Then become an MCA in Kenya, acquire political office. Suddenly, within months, you can build a mansion which even if you worked for 100 years, you'd never afford. And the young people therefore look at this and say, well, this is the route. One, I was asking myself yesterday, when I was thinking about the budget and noting that almost half of parliamentarians did not attend, and I said, shouldn't we make representation part-time? Indeed, are they not part-time? Because the lawyers who are politicians continue to practice. The engineers who are politicians continue to practice. Should we make it part-time so that they are only entitled to an allowance when they do a sitting? Make politics unattractive. Then it will attract those who truly want to serve. That is what those are some of the things that run in my mind, and I dare say the minds of many Kenyans of goodwill. We appear to have misguided faith in the ballot box, and I believe, and we've been around now. Africa's problem is the ballot. Because African politics now attracts not our very best, not our very honest, and is a combination of factors. In the early 60s up to the 70s, your parliamentarian was not the most well paid. Then we assume that if you pay your parliamentarians more or your councillors, they call them MCAs more, then they would perform better. Then you also gave them funds which they controlled. If they are women representatives, they have a fund, which a slush fund essentially, which they control. If they are MCAs, they have a ward fund. If they are MPs, they have a fund, which is the constituency fund. And then you created funds such as Hustler, such as Nyota, which you distribute in cash.
Yes.
In places.
Yeah.
Then those who went into politics, and that is why politics in Kenya is a life and death issue, because you have access to all these funds. So when Kenyans believe that in the year 2007 you'll have change, I laugh. Why do I laugh? I look at both sides, the so-called opposition and those in government. They are the same individuals. I've known them. Some of them were in parliament when I was a university student. So when we assume that that is what is going to help this country, we are deluding ourselves. And many times I think that Kenya has reached a stage where we must say that anybody who has ever served as an MCA, as a parliamentarian, as a president should be barred from contesting election, so that we start on a totally different slate with different ethics. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. But that is what we need dramatically. So, in a nutshell, we are deluding ourselves in believing that on the 10th day of August, the year 2027, we shall have new, freshly baked politicians. They are the very same. The things they said 10 years ago, they are not saying them. They are the same. They don't change their colors. They are the same. So Kenyans must rethink. And I now see people talking about constitutional change. Perhaps that is where we have to get it. What must we change? Governance. We must, and there are following things that we must do about governance. Number one, we must merge counties. Ethiopia, with a population almost twice as us, bigger than this country twice, has only 12 regions, with Dire Dawa and Addis Ababa being the equivalent of Nairobi and Mombasa, being governed differently. No governor. We must reduce counties, in my view, to 14 at the very best. Two, we must reduce the size of parliament. We must reduce the size of parliament, and we must consider bringing about proportional representation, so that we don't have these ethnic groupings which masquerade as political parties. We must reduce remuneration for those who are in the political space, and we must consider making our parliamentarians part-timers. We must re-energize the civil service so that it becomes a civil service that is not politically aligned. Once we do that and we begin to merge institutions, there are institutions, for example, that should be merged. The Office of the Ombudsman, the Office of National Cohesion, and Kenya Human Rights Commission. That should be one commission. You know, there is so much work to be done. Once we have the architecture of governance properly done, then we can begin to change the DNA of your political class. It will begin to attract people who truly want to serve. But in the next 10 to 15 years, if we continue on this basis, our politics will continue to attract our very worst. And I want to explain what I mean by worst. People think that if you have a degree, you are a professor, you are a doctor, you are an engineer, you are a lawyer, you are good. No. In fact, some of the most dangerous people to this country are professionals. It is character. The Kenyan voter, and I dare say the African voter, is a co-author of his own misfortune. I think I've said this before at one time, and I was quoting Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere when in 1994 he was invited by his party, Chama cha Mapinduzi, to give a suggestion on who should be the president of Tanzania. And he says, first of all, he must be an individual who will fight corruption. He must be an individual who will fight against religion religious mobilization and ethnic mobilization. He must be an individual who knows that being in power is a position of trusteeship. He must be a humble man. Then he said, but I see my people now thinking religion, thinking ethnicity. And he said in Kiswahili, naomba iwatafune. And there is a sense in which the Kenyan voter, as you rightly say, and as your guest rightly say, they know the individuals who, if given an opportunity, would serve. But they don't. In fact, a friend of mine who is an ambassador, but who lived here, is ambassador of a foreign country, told me Kenyans have never quite voted a president or voted. They vote against something. And in that process, another person is declared the winner. Perhaps that is what we do. You go to the village today, people are voting along clan lines. People are voting along clan lines, along tribal lines, and a little bit of who paid the money most. So you are right in saying, knowing as we do the men and women who, if given the opportunity to serve, would serve, we choose not to vote them. And this is what Kenyans say, hajui siasa. And hajui siasa means that you don't bribe the electorate. Hajui siasa means that you don't drink with the electorate. Hajui siasa means that you don't lie to the electorate. Hajui siasa means you are not prepared to share with them the CDF. Hajui siasa means that you are a honest man or a woman. Then hujui siasa from the Kenyan voter standpoint. It's sad I'm giving this example because it's not a good one.
Yeah.
But when I go to Rwanda, and I go there often, the way the Rwandese think on average is very different from the way the Kenyans think. Because they have known pain. Not that we must know pain. We must now learn not to experience that pain. But they can relate. The woman in the village who is part of the milk production process, who has been given a cow, thinks differently. The person who goes to the village hospital and gets medication thinks differently. The person who sees the traffic officer, the person who has a tablet in schools in Rwanda. Because he or she is able to see that the tax he or she pays is resulting in good education, health facilities. Look at Kenya today. The number of international system schools, British or American, there is a proliferation of them. Because the middle class has lost faith in the education system. All these parliamentarians you see, 99% of them, their children are not going to Kenyan schools.
Oh, for sure.
Number two, 99% of parliamentarians, their medical cover also has a component of treatment outside of the country. So they have no interest. But when I grew up, partly in my rural home and partly in Nairobi, when we heard you are going to a private school, we wondered what was wrong with you because schools worked.